I am on my 8th video and starting to lose my voice, so we're going to keep trucking along here and see if we can do this. Chapter 16, Social Media. It's very easy to listen to the negativity surrounding the concept of social media, often dismissed as just a time waster and something for kids. The rise of multiple platforms of social media can't be ignored. Being able to connect through a medium is paramount for any kind of communication. And on one platform like Facebook, any Christian can theoretically be connected to over 1 billion active users at a time. Maybe more importantly, that same Christian can connect with their entire contact list quickly for content-centric interactions. Almost everyone online with a decent-sized friends list has a following now, and we have all become kind of micro-celebrity with a following of micro-celebrities in tow. But that medium of posts and messages isn't just a piece of paper with the ink markings of a language on them anymore, one that's sent from person to person. It's not even direct audio conversation between two people over a telephone line anymore. It's near real-time connection between you and everyone remotely involved in your life. A connection that can send a funny video from people you have and never will meet. But because of the way the network works, you see it and are even notified of its pending on your account setting. Preachers, public speakers, politicians, you sneaky little alliteration, you keeps popping up. Used to be the only ones to speak with crowds on a daily basis, but now, if you have a great lunch, your whole social circle knows by the end of the day about the fish tacos were banging. We all have platforms and we all have crowds. They just get squeezed through the smartphone in our pockets instead of into a pew on Sundays. You can choose not to read a book. You can choose not to call a friend or a family member, but you cannot escape trending topics and memes if you want to use the same social media system that allows them to be shared. There really is no immunization against viral videos on YouTube, other than not going on YouTube in the first place. And my fear is that that's the default position of the church with regard to social media. Private access to Facebook groups, password-protected websites defeat the whole purpose of an internet. And that because the most trivial things can be made famous, the power and scope of social media is lessened in the eyes of ministry leaders, maybe a few years or decades removed from the Snapchatting, Instagramming saints of the church. That's the power of how fast something can reach. Exponentially more people when shared, but only if shared. The same in or out attitude to social media's poor uses applies when the networks to share good content as well. By trivializing the latest social app on the market and not taking it seriously, churches and ministries miss and lose opportunities to maximize their message. This is why a Christian version of Facebook, while being safe, defeats the purpose of being in a world and not of it. Facebook's advantage is everyone's. Everyone's connected on Facebook. A person's friend and their friends and their friends' friends. Those connections mean that a message shared by a congregant in your church can now bring the gospel to people who might literally not know a Christian personally. Yet because of the connectivity, a person with no one in their lives to hear the gospel from could literally hear the gospel because they know a guy who knows a guy. Jesus is, in his sovereignty, is going to save people through the friends of friends online. If we hide behind Christian versions of our favorite social media avenues, this connection is lost and it forces people almost by necessity to be Christian before connecting with Christians. We do not need a GodTube. We need Christians on YouTube because they believe in God, posting their stories into a world of other YouTube stories because they believe in God. There is a lot to be scared of on the internet. Videos can be posted of horribly sinful things, tempting Christians into that very same sin. And Paul talks something similar when he's dealing with elders. He must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into the condemnation of the devil. 1 Timothy 3:6. In real life, you may know another sinner closely, but you are never so intimately connected to their sin or tempted by their sin that it can affect you. The distance of life outside the web offers some incidental protection, but online, you're connected to people by effortless clicks of mouses and taps of touchscreens. Online, all it takes for a follower to have a link to deviant content is you just 2 clicks away from being tempted by their sins. Jesus challenged the status quo by saying that looking at a woman lustfully was the same kind of thing as adultery, and he was talking about this kind of thing. Social media means that people who are socially connected need to be considered carefully. Sending first-year Bible college students to strip clubs to evangelize would be a horrible idea any way you swing or shake it. Even if it worked, it would be too foolhardy to try. Yet we tolerate this online because of the need for followers to spread the message or build a platform. Wisdom is needed for how to deal with every follower on Twitter or Pinterest. If a sinner who wants others to sin with them can get connected with you, Satan has a very real opportunity to starting his work. But if we aren't willing to wade into the swath of memes and funny videos, then we can't be in the World Wide Web and not of it. We need to have our own context seasoned with salt as well. Spamming the network isn't exactly evangelism or discipleship either. As Stephen Smith from Open Bible Info states, around 20 million of the 40 million verses shared on Twitter this year, 20 million of the 40 million verses shared on Twitter this year, 2015 to 16, as far as I can tell, came from Bible spam accounts that do nothing but tweet the Bible verse all day. This automation of the faith is something that we have never had to deal with or as a religion before. A few years ago, I did an experiment on the church online, specifically on Twitter. I followed every Christian I could find until Twitter's algorithm stopped me. About 5,000 accounts before automated messages told me I can't follow anyone else without first being followed first. From churches to pastors to seminaries, about 4 years ago, I followed every Christian I could find on Twitter via a simple set of search terms. Here were the terms: pastor, youth pastor, church, Bible, seminary, Bible school, Christian, preacher. And after about a month of mindlessly scrolling each search results, I built a solid cross-section of Christian Twitterverse. And what I found was frankly sad. My daily feed was soon bombarded with aggressive and politically charged rhetoric. Everything from claiming that one pundit was a saint to slamming others as a shill, from what can only be described as hate towards one direction of the political spectrum that can only be viewed as ignorance from the other. All from mostly pastors. I was kept up to date on the status of every major sports genre in North America with respective pseudo-political discourse that ensued was what you'd expect from a jersey-clad fan of the stands of a stadium, from pastors. I saw seminaries and private Christian schools doing a great job of showing off that their programs were available, but doing nothing to show how they were fixing some of the moral and logistical problems of public education. I saw churches go years between posts, and pastors went investigated as well. I saw a select few accounts of broken and dejected pastors journey their way out from loss of ministry position online with some counsel and friends to help them with the pain of having one's calling challenged. But most of all, what I saw what happens when there isn't a theology behind an online action. Having a theology of the internet isn't about having a Bible verse that defends your last political or sports-related tweet, but rather knowing why Twitter exists and is popular, and why or how the gospel should be relevant there. These go hand in hand, and don't ever flirt with the commoditization of sports and faith. Twitter is a public platform, and it is close to an online pulpit as we're likely going to see. It was birthed in an era of 140 characters or less, but you might be able to fit, which you might note almost every popular Bible verse fits into. But these Bible verses that get posted to Twitter are disturbingly similar to the daily Bible verse of the YouVersion Bible app, as if the ease of being able to share your faith as simple as a like button on a Facebook post, or worse, becomes the automated vanity electric cars now drive down the highways of select cities. We have shamefully automated our faith online down to a series of clicks and phrases, marked more so by the slew of celebrity pastors who all use the same Twitter bot to respond to follows as if no one had a preset script was speaking to them, or compare that script from one megachurch pastor to another, as if the way a Twitter bot flirts with lying as it impersonates a pastor online isn't exactly how a pastor flirts with a congregant before being caught in adultery later. The church online, specifically Twitter, is a Jesus fish out of water, stuck into a desert of irrelevant posts with noticeable confusion on the platform could be used to evangelize and disciple new users on it. And I can't help but wonder how our activity online will be scrutinized in heaven. Not just our shameful use of porn or thieving downloads or slanderous gossip in the church comment section, but in our cowardly wasting of talents that God gave us when He ordained us before the foundation of the world, a social network and vast and far-reaching as Twitter. Your atheist friend does not care what your Bible app's verse of the day is, or what John Piper's Twitter bot has shared out of the Gospels today. He cares, if at all, what you share from the Bible, and dare I say why. For the goodness sake, the 45th President of the United States, America, tweets his own 2 thumbs. And you're telling me that you can't be bothered to respond to your church's following? That's not the Bible verse that should be tweeted or shared. It's the person that should be at the end of a one-sided conversation, in case it turns to a two-sided one. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. Colossians 4:6 ESV. An auto mailer or Twitter bot can't speak with someone. No matter how advanced the code or program, it won't be able to share its testimony with the person to pray with them. The ability to share something can outweigh the content of what's being shared when the medium isn't the message. This regard, no matter how much Marshall McLuhan would want us to believe it, spam isn't as desirable as a message. It sure shows up as a medium, but the network allows for things to be shared with intent, and the purpose taking advantage of the scope without abusing the power. A sermon shared by every member of a church connected to every member of a church will preach farther than any from its own pulpit, but only if everyone is on board to share. The idea of the twitpic or it didn't happen phrase, tweeted thousands of times by the followers of individuals and celebrities alike. We need and crave proof of authenticity online because we've all seen massive amounts of spam online, a Nigerian princess wanting to give us money, and that's why daily vlogs are so popular on YouTube. We want to see what's going on with people that we're connected to. John Acuff tells the story of being challenged to tweet a picture of a bodybuilder doing his workout next to him in an airport. One he remarks as free life advice to never secretly have pictures of bodybuilders on your phone. Hilarious for sure, but illustrating the value of proof online perfectly. His fans wanted proof, not productivity. A Twitter bot that auto-responds or posts from pre-selected bank of tweets cheapen the idea of connecting the way we are online. You would never expect an answering machine in lieu of an actual church staff if you walked in on a weekday. But how many pastors reading this book have those Autobots? Not the cool transforming kind either, managing thousands of people that follow you in some cases. We get challenged to prove our online accomplishments as if online boasting didn't secure a fickle pride enough. The ability to prove something with photos or video evidence near instantaneously is something that the bulk of the Christian faith hasn't had a tool throughout history. We can spend all day tweeting and retweeting Bible verses in and out of context if a believer never goes to church, and all we have done is add to the arbitrage of the internet. The web doesn't need people to fill other people's feeds. It needs Christians changing the world for Christ. Our approach needs to switch from what Christians like to see online to what people need to see online. We need to do what Gary Vaynerchuk advises us and document, not create. Our online content needs to be an outcropping of the love we have for Jesus. Our social media feeds need to be visions of us living out the faith. From Instagram pictures of grace, said at fast food joints, to live tweets of homeless people at a feeding homeless people at a soup kitchen. Facebook live video of our weekly Bible studies, Pinterest potluck blog entries. We can't just find the lowest common denominator for our online engagement. Living our faith out online is key to doing just that. So people who care what you are doing know about your faith. So much of our social media is based around the idea of sharing your story. Would it be so much for the modern church to admit that we have the best story? If we don't, then why are we even here? Followers need to be watched as well. There isn't much redeemable from a Twitter bot that only posts nudes from your senior pastor's following your senior pastor's feed, especially if he doesn't hear the snake hissing and consequently throws a rock of block towards the dangerous head. I'm not saying you need to block blatantly pornographic or sinful accounts that follow you online. God only knows who might follow your online presence with intentions for sin and get converted because they interacted with your stuff. I mean that the Apostle Paul had a pretty sketchy background of killing Christians before he started making them in droves. Just realize that people naturally want to see what you follow when they can, and on platforms like Twitter, who follow you. You may be fine with questionable characters clinging to your online presence, but Lord knows Jesus was in real life. But Jesus never sinned, even when tempted in every way. And somewhere between that and him telling us that looking at a woman lustfully was the same as adultery in the flesh is a line Christian needs to draw for their online profiles and followers. In short, if this book goes viral, and I will block you the first time I see what your future Christian spouse should only see in your Twitter avatar. Every other Christian online should too. Don't send me nudes. That's a long chapter. Oh man, 15 minutes. Yeah, my views on social media are basically the same. I think it's underutilized, and you see this in two ways. We've mentioned before that Pornhub, which is technically the largest social media on the web. It allows for user creation, user interaction, and uploading of user-generated content. If you took away all the nudity in porn, that would basically be what Facebook is with their video, or several other sites that are out there. Yet it's exclusively for porn, so Christians don't do anything on that site because obviously we can't without being tempted, and there's been no inroads to figure out how to get Christian content onto that site to start competing with the sin that's happening where the sinners are. So that's one thing that didn't get mentioned in this book that I'm kind of wrestling with. Like, I don't know how we can hold those two things in tension, that if we're going to do ministry online in a social media context, why aren't we going to the social media that's most sinful? It's just a tricky thing. But the other thing is, like, look at your average church. Every single Christian has a testimony of how they came to Christ. And we don't share them as churches. It would be a real thoughtful and meaningful project to really kind of nail down that and have it as like the essential content that everyone shares. And I've only ever seen one church do this, where they have a page and it's just, a couple hundred people that go to their church, and every one of them, if they are a Jesus believer, gets a 5-minute video done of them on the church website that they can then share if they want to. And I think that's brilliant, because if you time that right, if your church of, let's say, 1,000 people, like a good mid-sized church, if your church of 1,000 people, and you have half of them outfitted with video format files of their testimonies, hosted on your site, so that they can have a copy, but hosted on your site so it makes it easy to share to social media platforms, and you just max out the amount of platforms that it automatically can be shared to, and then everybody on Easter weekend, on Good Friday or like Easter Sunday, all shares their stuff at the same time with a pre-selected set of tags that would identify the content as locally based, so that people would find it if they were looking for local things, all that kind of stuff. You would have a massive, oddly viral kind of post, where it's not one post going viral. It's 100 posts all doing the exact same thing, all being posted under the search terms, augmenting the algorithm so that the social media, the other people in the social network, can now see what a portion of these people are doing by all proclaiming Jesus in their life at the same time. That stuff like that has never happened. Like, all the building blocks are there, but it's never happened. And that's what I'm trying to hit on this, is that this kind of stuff can happen because of the internet, but we don't have a theology of the internet. We don't have an ecclesiology of the internet, how the church is supposed to work on the internet. We have tons of people writing books about this stuff, and it all just scratches the surface and covers the same kind of, like, make sure you have proper tags on your YouTube videos so that, you can make sure that you're getting engagement on your videos. And that's not the purpose of the internet, especially social media. The purpose is to connect with people, and we simply aren't anymore. So, hope you liked it. On to the next chapter. We'll talk to you soon.